Have you ever noticed how sometimes the quietest people in a room are the ones who have the most to say? It was like that with Laura. She arrived without fanfare, without exaggerated recommendations, without the spotlight. An ordinary girl with a simple appearance, discreet clothes, and a gaze that seemed to observe everything. First day of internship at one of the biggest companies in the sector. Nobody paid much attention. The employees were too busy with their goals, their spreadsheets, their coffee rushes, and Laura, she sat in a corner of the shared room, opened her notebook, and fell silent. The CEO, Eduardo, didn't even look at her. A middle-aged, self-assured man with an enviable resume, and an ego the size of the building where they worked. For him, an intern was a detail, almost decoration, and Laura seemed to fit perfectly into this invisible category. But what no one knew or suspected was that that silent girl, hidden behind a notebook, would change the course of the entire company, and it would change everyone's lives inside. In that company, the rule was clear. Those who talk too much don't last. The atmosphere was chilly, not because of the air conditioning, but because of the way people treated each other. Friendliness, only in the form of a welcome. Smiles, rare. Everything revolved around goals, deadlines, pressure. It was the kind of place where you enter excited, and in a few months you wake up counting down the days until the weekend. Eduardo, the CEO, made a point of keeping everything under control. He believed that a good leader is one who commands respect, or rather, fear. And he had a mantra: interns are here to learn, not to give opinions. And Laura listened. She always listened. She didn't complain. She didn't ask questions in meetings. She didn't even try to fit in. But she was always there, sitting in the same corner, observing and writing a lot. While others were lost in repetitive tasks and empty meetings, Laura absorbed everything, every dynamic, every expression, every wrong decision. She looked small in there, fragile, out of place. But inside, it was accumulating fuel, and the explosion was just a matter of time. Every big company has that one project that is treated like a child. In their case, it was Horizon 2025, the big bet of the year, the plan that promised to revolutionize the market, attract investors, dominate the competition. Weekly meetings, brilliant presentations, motivational speeches, everything revolved around this. And when the big launch day arrived, what was supposed to be the pinnacle of innovation turned into a disaster. The product was full of bugs. The marketing campaign didn't make sense. Users complained en masse. Social media exploded. And what about the shares? They plummeted. The next morning, the atmosphere was like a wake. The hallways were silent, the meetings were tense. Eduardo, out of his mind, he began to look for those responsible, to pressure directors, to fire those who were at the forefront of the struggle, and no one had any answers about that. There in the back of the room, sitting as always, was Laura, with the same notebook on his lap, the same calm expression, and one difference: the page she was writing on had a large title at the top: Risk Analysis, Horizon 2025. But no one had asked her what she thought. Yet that morning, Laura arrived early, earlier than everyone else. He sat in the same corner. He took a deep breath, and he printed out a report. 12 pages, charts, analysis, predictions, a complete diagnosis of the failure of Horizon 2025, and most impressively, all of this done by an intern. She didn't send an email. She didn't wait to be called. She just walked up to the direct coordinator's desk and handed over the document. "It's about the project," he said. "I think this might help." He leafed through it for 2 seconds, not even hiding his disdain. "You did this here? Why, this isn't even your area." And before he even heard the answer, he chuckled, pushed the paperwork back, and threw it in the trash. Laura just nodded. She went back to her desk and continued writing. But what he didn't know is that someone was watching. Another intern, curious, saw the report being discarded, and on impulse he pulled the paper from the basket. He read the first page and it froze. "Did you see this here?" he asked an analyst sitting nearby. The analyst read it, then another, and in less than 2 hours, that paper forgotten in the trash was in the hands of the board of directors and about to reach Edward. The report reached Eduardo's office through the hands of the financial manager. "You have to see this," he said, leaving the sheaf of papers on the table. Eduardo was tired, irritated, suspicious, but something in that tone made him stop. He picked up the report and began to read. On the first page, a clear, straightforward executive summary. In the second, consumer behavior graphs. In the third, crossing internal data with market trends. With each page, his expression changed. From furrowed brows to wide eyes, from skepticism to disbelief. "Who wrote this here?" he asked, already knowing that the answer would be uncomfortable. "An intern," the manager replied. Laura. Silence. Laura, that same girl he never even greeted, the one who barely took her eyes off her notebook. She had seen everything. Before everyone else, and worse, he had offered the solution and it had been ignored. Eduardo dropped the paper. He narrowed his eyes. For the first time in a long time, he felt like maybe he had underestimated someone. "Bring her to my office," he said. It was time to look at Laura. For real. The door opened. Laura entered with light steps, notebook in hand, calm expression. But it wasn't an empty calm. It was the calm of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Eduardo was behind the desk, arms crossed, his gaze fixed on her. For a moment, only silence. "Where did you get that from?" he asked directly. Laura took a deep breath. She didn't hesitate. "I observed the processes. I analyzed internal data. I cross-referenced public reports and market trends. I tested hypotheses. I simulated scenarios. No arrogance, no doubt." Eduardo was silent for long seconds. He expected stuttering, insecurity, and stumbling. But he found firmness. The girl he had ignored for weeks was there, teaching. "Why didn't you say anything before?" he asked, trying to understand. "Because here, nobody listens to interns," she replied. Simple. True. Cutting. Eduardo leaned back in his chair. For the first time, he looked at her not as a number, not as a junior position, but as someone with something real to offer. At that moment, something changed. And the way, in the company and in it. Laura wasn't just another one. She was the missing piece, the one he'd never seen. The following week, everything began to change. Laura's ideas, previously ignored, were now on the meeting tables. Suggestions for operational adjustments, process redesign, product reformulation, a new approach to communicating with the public. And it wasn't theory. It was practice, clear, applicable. Some directors turned up their noses at first. "She's just an intern," they muttered. But Eduardo, the same Eduardo who had never even noticed her before, now made a point of listening to her and defending. He knew what he had in his hands. Laura began to participate in strategic meetings, still with her notebook in hand, but now with a voice. And the results? Within a few weeks, the company stabilized. Within 2 months, it was growing again. Its reputation was recovering. The product, once criticized, was now praised. In the hallways, employees began to comment. "Did you see what that girl did? Yeah, maybe we should listen to the interns more." Laura wasn't looking for applause or the spotlight. She just wanted to be heard. And now he was the most respected voice in the company, who was once invisible. Became the center of reconstruction. The company was breathing again. The numbers were improving. The employees felt more engaged, and Laura was finally recognized. Until, at a board meeting, the unexpected happened. One of the counselors, and tall, some older gentleman, stared at her. He squinted as if trying to remember something. And then he murmured, "That girl is Antonio Montero's daughter." Silence. Everyone looked at each other. Eduardo's eyes widened. "Montero, the founder of the company?" Laura, with a slight smile, confirmed, Yes, Antonio Montero was my father. And he added, I joined as an intern because I wanted to see for myself what his company had become. The room went silent. The shock was total. Eduardo leaned back in his chair, visibly shaken. All this time he ignored the daughter of the man who created it all, the rightful heir, the one who knew the soul of the company better than any executive inside. Laura wasn't there by chance. She was on a mission, and he had done it perfectly, without anyone noticing. News of Laura's identity spread like wildfire. Some were shocked, others were embarrassed, many were relieved. As if finally something fair was happening in that company, Eduardo wasted no time. He called Laura for a new meeting, but this time with a different attitude, without arrogance, without imposition. I want you to take over a board position, with carte blanche to change whatever you think is necessary, he said. Laura was silent for a moment, thoughtful. She could say yes. And that was that. But he looked around. He thought about everything he had seen and heard since day one. The jokes behind his back, the wasted talents, the fear of speaking out, the culture that stifled rather than inspired. Then he replied, I'll accept, but on one condition, which, I don't just want a job, I want to change the essence of this place. I want this company to go back to being a place where ideas are heard, where no one is invisible, where my father would be proud to work again. Eduardo nodded. No arguments, he knew. She was right, the choice was made, and that decision would be the beginning of a new era. The following months marked a true revolution. The company has changed, and not just in the reports, but in the atmosphere, in the way people walked through the hallways, in the conversations over coffee. Something new had been born. Under Laura's leadership, inclusion programs emerged, spaces to hear ideas from all levels, mentoring across sectors. Interns began to participate in decisions. Old employees are smiling again. And Eduardo? That tough, skeptical CEO now listened more than he spoke. He discovered that leading is also learning. Laura took over as Director of Innovation and Culture. But more than that, she gave the company its soul back. Her notebook, the same notebook that had been with her since day one, now lay open on a large table full of post-its, graphs, and people collaborating. She was no longer invisible. It was inspiration. The girl who started out ignored, discredited, discarded. Today it was the name everyone wanted to follow, and the company, it was never the same again. Did you like this story? So leave your like, share with someone who has been underestimated, and comment here. Have you ever felt invisible like Laura? Comment below. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, now is the time. Press the button, activate notifications, and come with us for more stories like this, full of twists and turns, overcoming and transformation. See you in the next video.